Hello, Georgetta Gankars here, and today I want to talk to you about a process called Tataki-zome. And it's a Japanese process, and it means leaf pounding dyeing. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're taking a bunch of flowers or leaves, and you're transferring that onto a piece of paper by pounding and leaving that beautiful imprint that comes from the natural flower. So let me tell you how to get started. The first thing that you'll need is you have to go out and get flowers. And I really recommend getting fresh flowers. They work really well. You don't want to wait until they dried out. So if you're not buying the flowers, maybe they're from your garden, when they're falling from the tree, or maybe you are going to a park where you see some kind of leaves and you're just picking them up when they're fresh. The next thing that you want to do is you need a hammer or a mallet, and you need watercolor paper. So the watercolor paper can be textured or it can be flat. It's up to you. If you want the imprint to look more textured, then use a textured one, and if you want it to be flat, use a flat one. Cardstock works okay too, but do make sure when you're using the watercolor paper that it's heavy. So it should be very thick, not a thin sheet of paper, watercolor paper. The next thing that you will need besides your flowers, and if you have leaves, your hammer, is you will need a piece of plastic. And this is just to put on top of the flowers, so when you're pounding, the flowers don't move around. The plastic should be where, you can move it. You see how this can be moved? It's not very hard. The next thing that I like to do is, for me, I like to incorporate watercolors or acrylics into my final design. So I have here a bunch of watercolors and my brush and my water. But I'm going to do the pounding video first, and then I'll show you what you can do with the watercolors. You can also incorporate different color pins where you can draw around the flowers. It becomes a really fun process. So let's get started. The first thing is you want to look at your flowers and you want to choose the ones, and it doesn't matter how you put them. I'm going to put them but face down. So you can see this is the textured part. I'm putting that down like this on the paper here. And I'm going to look for some leaves I think that are fresh. Again, some of them have dried, unfortunately, because I did have them in my bag when I was plein air painting. So I'm just going to put a bunch of them down. And you can see I'm opening them and I'm putting them flat down on the paper. And the important thing is when you are opening the flower, you want to put the part of the flower, you don't want to use the back side of the flower. You want to use the front side. So I'm kind of, and you can take the leaves off. You can position them any way you want. You can get as creative as you want. You can say, what, I'm going to put some on this side. Maybe I'm going to, use another leaf and put some on the other side. It's really up to you, okay? So I have my setup, and it kind of looks like this here. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my paper on top. And this is my plastic paper. Now, I'm going to make a little bit of noise now, just a little bit of warning, because I do have to pound the flowers, and I'm going to pound them kind of like in this circular motion, and I'm going to, don't hit your fingers by mistake, make sure you look where you're pounding, and so it's going to make a little bit of noise. Okay, I was pounding so much, I'm sorry, that the camera actually had a mishap here and fell. So the next thing I'm going to do is I've pounded these flowers, and then I'm going to remove, you see, this is what's left, and I'm going to carefully take the remains of these flowers off of here. Okay. And I get this kind of texture here. I'll put it up close so you can see it. And then what I do is, I didn't want to, I'm going to do another video where I pound them where the flowers come out the whole shapes. But in this case, I didn't want to, because I wanted to show you how to start with this and how to incorporate this, maybe if you're using watercolors. So you could pound the whole flower. I did sections of it, so I'm going to take out now my watercolor paint here, and I have some red, and you can use any color. And what I'm going to do is I'm kind of going to have a combination of where I'm doing these leaves, and I also am incorporating a little bit of my watercolor drawing into the flower. So you can see what I've done here. I've kind of, used some of that flower as my inspiration. And you can use different color reds. I have an alizarin crimson, I have an apple here, and then I can use that and I can kind of draw, and I can do washes with it. So it's a combination of the flower itself, the pounding of the flower, and the drawing. And I'll show you what happens when we start, putting in this area of the leaf here. And I start, sometimes my watercolors are like this. They're really exciting. I can get lots of shadows. I can add pen and ink to it. If you're a person who loves to draw, this could be an exercise for you where you're starting out with the leaf pounding, and maybe then you're, adding and incorporating some kind of drawing into it, or you can even draw with the watercolors. And you can see how that flower is beginning to develop, and I can work more shadows into it. I can also add more color into it. So, and again, it's your flower. You can make it any color you want. That's the great part. Okay, so I'm going to add a little bit of contrast. I think I'm going to put some yellow in here, and this wasn't in the flower, but I just kind of want to make it pop. And I think I want to start doing that. So I'll show you again. I'm going to do a whole nother series on this, but you can see how the flower then starts, changing and its colors and taking shape, and you're working with the natural dyes of the paper while you're painting. So it becomes really interesting. It becomes your own take on the flower, but you can just do the pounding on itself and bring it out. But you can see now how I can bring out this flower. I can also, it just works just like a watercolor. I can wash over it. So if I wash over the whole flower, you can see what happens here, because we had a yellow and a red together, and then it becomes more like this. Okay, and then I'm going to start working in that flower a little bit more, just so we have a little bit of contrast. And I love sometimes playing with the negative space of the flower. So we just started with this purple, and it makes these nice abstract designs again, because you can just draw the outline, of your flower, of what shape that you want. So definitely give it a go. It's something that's kind of fun. It doesn't take that much time to do. You can start on a little small cardstock if you want, or watercolor paper, and just expand it from there. And just be free with your brush. When I'm painting these kind of abstract kind of flowers and designs, I just move my brush all around very free. And I get these wonderful loose kind of movements here, you can see. So it's a combination of that and pounding. And I'll do a realistic video on how to make it look realistic too. So see you soon.